Welcome to the Figma tutorial for beginners. In this video, we're going to be redesigning this landing page. And as we go along throughout the video, we're going to introduce all of the different tools and features of Figma. And by the end, you're going to have a really good grasp on how to use the tool and how to design fantastic websites like this one. Now, the screenshot that we're using for inspiration is not something that I've designed. I actually found this on Dribbble by a designer by the name of Mirna. And this is a fantastic website. I love the colors, the layouts. It's super modern, lots of white space, and this is going to give us a really good base to take the skills that we learn in this video and then apply it to any different type of design or different type of website. So Mirna, thank you for the inspiration, and I will drop a link to Mirna's Dribbble profile down in the description of this video. All right, diving into Figma, the first thing that we want to do is click this button right here on the top left. And this is going to allow us to create a frame. And over here on the right side, it's going to show us some additional options. We are going to make this the size of a desktop. And we're going to pull this down so it's the same size as our screenshot example, okay? Now, the way that Figma works is very similar to pretty much any other design or even development software, where on the left, you have your layers panel. So you can see all of the individual assets, images, shapes, text, anything that you have inside your Figma file is going to show up right here on the left. And as you group things and decide which things you want on top or on bottom or behind or in front, all of this can be adjusted from your layers panel. Now, for the sake of this video, we're going to stick to the basics. We're not going to spend too much time on naming different layers or on things like variables or some of the more advanced Figma features. But for right now, we're just going to focus on the basics of getting this site live. Now, one other thing that I would like to mention is as we're recreating this site, this is a really good exercise for you to do. Find a website that you like and also one that is going to push you as you do a recreation. Now, by redesigning these things, this is not copying unless you try to use this as your own work, but this is great practice. So what we're going to go ahead and do now for our frame is I'm going to select this and I am going to click a plus on this layout grid. Now, what this is going to do is it's going to place a grid, but I want to come over here and I'm going to change this to columns, okay? Now, a pretty standard number of columns is 12. And then what you can do is set a margin on the outside because you can see that there is spacing on each side of our example here. And we don't want the content to go all the way out to the edge of the screen because that's just not very user friendly. So now that we've got our columns, the first thing that we want to focus on is our left section right here, okay? So what we're going to do is click up here and add a text block. And I'm just going to put this first word here. Now, I've got this text block. I'm going to come over here, and on the right side, you're going to be able to change and adjust all the different settings for your text. So you can update the font, you can change the size, the line spacing, the letter spacing, all of those different things, okay? So what we're going to do is we are going to make this large, and we are going to change it to black, and we're going to move this right down here. All right, so now that we've got this, what we want to do is get all of this text, but you'll notice that one of these is aligned to the right. All right, so one thing we could do is we could try to pull this over to the right side, but that's going to pull all of our text over. So what I would recommend is cutting this out, moving it back in as a separate text block, and then we can push this over to the right. Now that's going to leave a spot open for these little circles. And again, this just gives it a really kind of custom look when you do slight things like this to update the way that your fonts show up. Okay, so we are going to change this to medium. Now right here with our line spacing, we are going to shrink this down just a little bit. We're going to move this over, and that is looking pretty good. So what we want to do is we want to insert these 3 circles with the credit card icon. So we're going to come up here to our different shapes on the top left, select circle, and we're going to draw 3 of these. Now, I love having an example right here on the left because you can use the eyedropper tool. So I just press I on my keyboard, and it's going to select this eyedropper tool, and then I can copy the colors of whatever it is that I'm working on. So I can take this circle, and what I'm going to do is move this over. Now for these outside circles, I don't want there to be any fill. So right here on the left, I'm going to pull the opacity all the way down, and I'm going to add a stroke. So I click stroke, it's going to add that. Now what we want to do is use this eyedropper tool to also pull that same purple color. And with our stroke size, we are going to blow this up just a little bit. I think 4 looks good. And then what I can do is hold Option and slide this over. All right, so things are looking pretty good. Now what I'm noticing with this font is the lines are too spaced apart, and so I can come over here, click this, and then I can slide left or right to adjust the line spacing. So I'm going to shrink this down just a little bit, and then what I'm going to have to do is grab these 3 elements and I'm going to bump them up just a little bit so they fit nicely in between there. All right. So these circles might be slightly too large, so what I'm going to do is shrink these down, right like that. Perfect. All right, so now let's do this text here on the top that says, "Welcome to Mortgage Mastery." So what I'm going to do is I can actually just hold Option and drag this up, and then this is going to just copy over this text box, "Welcome to Mortgage Mastery." So I'll click the text size over here, and if I click down, it's going to move that 1 pixel at a time, but if I hold Shift and click down, it's going to move it 10 at a time. So I can shrink this all the way down to about right there. Let's look at our example, and let's drag it down right here. Now we've got this purple bubble around the word mortgage, so what we're going to do is pull in a rectangle, and we are going to drag this out. Now we're going to hit I on our keyboard, and we're going to make sure that we grab this exact purple color. And I'm going to click this text. Now what I can do is I can click the right bracket, and this is going to move this up or down on the panel over here. You can see as I click back and forth. So I'm going to bring this to the front. Now we're going to add some additional spacing right here. And then I can select just the word mortgage and change my fill color right here. And then with my box, once this is in the right position, I'm going to come up here to the top right, and this is our corner radius. Now if I just click this and slide it over, it's going to make the edges rounded. All right, so let's come over here to this image now. Okay, so the first thing that I want to focus on is this backdrop of this purple gradient. Now this is a bit of an odd shape, so what we can do is I'm going to grab my square, my box tool up here, and I am going to drag this right here, and then I'm going to copy and paste this, so there's 2 of them, and I'm going to make this the size of this second part right here, okay? Now if I select both of these and I come up here to this button at the top, Union Selection, so I can click this, and those are going to become one piece, okay? Now just so I can see the image in the background, I'm going to adjust the opacity of this fill. Now what I'm going to do is double click this, there we go, and I can slide this corner down. Perfect, so that's going to be just fine. All right, so now that we have this whole selection, I am going to select both of them, and we are going to round out the corners. All right, so that looks pretty good. Perfect, so now that this selection is put together and it's the right size, I am going to get that gradient set up. So over here on the fill, what I can do is I can click right here to the color, and then you'll see right here at the top it has the option to add a gradient. So I'm going to click that, and then now all I have to do is grab my eyedropper tool and make sure that I copy this color from the top and grab the bottom color right here. And then you'll just notice that my opacity is still down. So if I just bring this up to 100, that looks perfect. So you can see that matches right there. Okay. So let's bring this over here. Now what I'm noticing is my spacing is already a little bit wonky. And if I bring this over here, you'll see how much larger my text is than theirs. So what we want to do is shrink this down quite a bit. There we go. I think that looks a little bit better. And we are going to make sure everything is spaced appropriately. Let's move our circles up. All right, that's looking a lot better. So the next thing that I want to create is right here, this 4.9 out of 5. And so that should be pretty easy with our shape tool. We're just going to copy this square over and we're going to place it right here. I'm going to click I on my keyboard to get my white color. And then I'm going to select the corner radius here and slide that all the way over until about right there. Perfect. So now I can copy and paste one of these text boxes over again. I'm going to click the right bracket on my keyboard to bring that to the front. On my text settings, I'm going to left align it. And then I'm going to shrink down the size by holding Shift and then clicking the down arrow key. All right, so we're going to do 4.9. And then I'm going to shrink this down a little bit more. We're going to make this semi-bold. And I think that this space. And then I'm going to hold Option and slide this over to make a copy. And this one is going to be out of 5. Now you notice in the example that the backslash, and the 5 are quite a bit smaller. So we're going to do this. And then right down here on our text settings, you can align to bottom. And then we can just pull this down until it matches up right there. All right, we've got our 4.9 out of 5, and then your loan at your fingertips. Select this text box. Perfect. Now there's going to be quite a bit smaller text. We can slide this text box over here, and we're going to top align this, bring it directly below, and then the font weight needs to be slightly less. And let's lengthen out the spacing between our letters. Okay, and then finally we just have our orange stars, which again we can do this pretty easily with the shape tool. We're going to select the star, drag this out, and then what we can do is select corner radius, slightly adjust those, click I on your keyboard to select the color, and I'm just going to drag this over. And you can see that it's going to help you evenly space these out, showing those 5 pixels between each one. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click this and I'm going to group this selection because this is a group that obviously will always stay together. And then you'll notice over on my panels, it puts these in a group with all of my stars. So anytime I select one of these, it's going to select the entire group, okay? So now I'm going to bring this over here. So the interesting thing about grouping is you can nest groups together. So what I mean by that is I have the stars, which are a group, but now I also want to group all these together. So I'm going to hold Shift, select all of these elements for this little box. I'm going to right click and I'm going to click group selection again, okay? Now what this is going to do is if I select this, we've got our main group and then within that group we have this group. So theoretically we would want to name this our star group and then this would be our rating group. And so those are really easy to then snag over here on your layers panel. Perfect. So now what we want to do is get our mobile application text over here. So slide this over, press the right bracket to bring it to the top. And we're going to left align this text, and then we're going to have to shrink this down quite a bit. Perfect. All right, so this is going to go right here, and then we have a little button, which is download app. So we're going to drag this down, and you'll notice that this is underlined and in all caps, okay? We're going to shrink this down. Now we're going to go into our additional text settings, okay? So if you come down here to these 3 dots and you select this, you're going to get a number of different settings, whether that is all caps, underline, strike through, anything like that that you might need. You're going to be able to make those adjustments here in this little settings tab. All right, so we have made that all caps. We've made it underlined. We're going to want to make that slightly thicker and slightly smaller. And we will bring in all the icons here in a little bit. So for the sake of this, we're not going to recreate this phone, but what I am going to do is I'm going to make a copy of this. I'm going to double click on this image, and then I'm going to select crop. In this case, it's already selected. I'm going to shrink this down to around the phone, and we're just going to grab this image for our example. We're going to pull this down, and then once you press enter, it's going to crop that image. Now, if I select the image, come up here to our corner radius and drag that, you'll see it's going to round out those corners. All right, now we can take this image, we can drag it right down here. For now, things are looking really good. I'm going to click on this frame here, and I'm going to hide these grids so you can get a look at these different things. Now, of course, we're going to want to go in and adjust the spacing of a few things. We're going to want to make sure that we get all of our font sizes and everything correct. But for the most part, things are coming together really nicely. Now, you'll notice that you don't really need any special skills at Figma. You're just going through and you're recreating these things, and the hope is that as you go and create every one of these individual elements, you're going to remember how that was done. You're going to remember how to make these custom shapes or gradients, or how to quickly adjust the way that your fonts and text looks. All these different things are going to be maybe a little difficult at first, but once you get the hang of them, you're going to be able to reuse those skills over and over and over again. All right, so let's come down here, and we are going to grab this image of this guy in the glasses. And for the sake of this, what I want to do is grab our shapes, and let's just recreate this the same as we did with our other one. I'm going to hold my Option button, and I'm going to create 2 of these, and then I'm going to union that selection, and then I'm going to take the corner radius and slide it all the way out. All right, so what I've done is I've gone and just pulled a stock image to show you how we can get this placed inside of this element. So what you can do is get this appropriately placed exactly where you would like his face to go, and then if you select both of these, what you can actually do is come down here to use as mask, and then it's going to put that image inside that shape. And then if you want to make adjustments, you can just double click and you can slide this around any way you need, and that is going to look great. Okay, so we've got a few more things. We've got our C video link, which we can actually just copy and paste from here. Perfect. So we've got C video, and then down here we've got seamless home financing starts here. I'm going to take this. Let me double check. That was, yeah, at the very bottom. Perfect. And I think that was on 2 different lines. Starts here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shrink this down, and then it's going to wrap that text down below. I'm going to go regular. This is going to be slightly smaller. And then we also did have this little line right here that we can easily add in as a rectangle. Or you could easily do it with the line tool as well, and then just adjust, your line width. Okay, so I'm going to click right bracket, bring this to the front so we can make a few adjustments here. All right, and we have got that done. Okay, so the last thing that I want to do here is this little banner right here, which says, analytics, calculate, and it looks like these might be buttons, I'm not sure, but then in between them, they have little icons. And so we're going to grab our shape tool, and I'm going to duplicate this over like that. I'm going to click I on my keyboard to match the color, and then I'm going to adjust my corner radius to about right there. All right, so let's bring this over. Now you'll see the reason that my sizing is off a little bit is because my frame is slightly narrower. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this over here, and you'll see what happens when I try to drag my frame over. It's going to make everything seem a little bit wonky. So what I can actually do is select everything in here, drag it out, and now I can adjust my frame to make sure that that looks the same, and then I can bring this back in. Now I'm going to want to bring back my guides here to kind of see where I'm at, and then with my guides I'm actually going to have to go back and adjust these things. And adjust my margin again to where it lines up right there. Perfect. All right, now we've got a lot more space to work with, so I can bring this over here. this should fit pretty perfectly right in here. Great. And then we have our main header. It's going to go to the edge here. And then this also needs to come and be left aligned with everything else. All right, so things are looking good. Okay, so let's add some of our text down here. I think I can actually duplicate this. And what we're going to do is change the fill of this text to white. Now, you're not seeing it because it is behind this banner. So I'm going to click the right bracket. That's going to bring it to the top. We're going to left align this, and then we're going to type analytics. Now, that is obviously too big, so we're going to click Shift and then select the down arrow to shrink that up a little bit to about right there. And then we can drag this and center it. So we've got right there. We can drag this over. Now what I can do is I can select all of these individual elements, make sure I just have the text, and then I can come up here and select distribute horizontal spacing, and that's going to evenly space those out. And then I can select this right here and increase my spacing to where I need it. Now you'll notice that this one is pulling a little too far right here. All right, we're going to select these again, and we are going to distribute horizontally. There we go. Perfect. And then we'll have our little lightning bolt icon, which I'm going to pull in right now. All right, so I've got my icon. I'm going to pull this in here, and you'll see that it's going to pop up right there. And I'm going to want to drag this down and then just resize it up. So once I've got this in between each of these fonts, I can just go like this. And now I'm probably going to want to re-space these out just to make sure everything is even. Perfect. So let's go and hide our columns again just to see how things are looking. And we are very, very close. So the only things that we have left to do are a few additional elements here, a few buttons up here at the top, and loan planner, and then we are done. So we're going to put this thing in fast motion so you can watch how it's all done, and then we'll touch base here at the end. All right, so just like that, our landing page is finished. And what you've probably noticed throughout this video is that I'm not particularly talented with Figma, but I'm able to utilize the tool enough, and I know enough of its features and how it works to design all of the different things that I'm working on, whether that's my own software, which I designed, websites that I've designed, my personal brand, my social media posts. All these different things I do inside of Figma, and really you don't need anything beyond what we've talked about in this video. If you already are using Figma, hopefully this has been a good little refresher for you. If you enjoyed this tutorial, hit the like button down below, and I look forward to catching you in the next video.